Hey everybody, welcome back to the NevilleGAZSP podcast. I'm your host, Bryguy7571. With me as always is my good buddy Anders. Anders, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited. We've got a lot to talk about tonight.
Me too, especially after trying three times to get that intro right. I'm glad we finally got it right. So I was feeling the pressure of being gone for a while, and I was like, what the hell is my intro? So, all right, guys. So tonight we got a few things we want to talk to you guys about. So I've kind of noticed with the clients that I work with, especially in the beginning, uh, there are some things that they don't quite grasp. I got to be honest, a lot of it is because they're not reading like they're supposed to be. And you guys that don't get this usually, just like me, weren't reading like you were supposed to be. But tonight we're going to kind of explain what it means when people say to you, you are always manifesting, it never stops. What does that actually really mean? We're going to also talk about the mirror analogy that I've used before on this show. And we're going to kind of talk about like some really hard questions you need to be asking yourself and dig a little bit deeper into like what exactly self-concept is. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is you are always manifesting. What does that mean? Well, it means exactly what it says, but a lot of you guys aren't really looking at that and realizing that the bad things that are happening are also manifestations. The breakup was a manifestation. The argument you had after the breakup was a manifestation. The rejection you keep getting as you try to beg and plead with them is also a manifestation, because what's happening is your beliefs are showing up in your 3D. You're just thinking, oh, I can't manifest them back. Well, you are. You're constantly telling them what to do, and they're constantly doing it. And the more you believe it, the faster they do it. It's just what you're believing is kind of the bad story. You're not believing that they love you. You're believing that they hate you. They don't want to talk to you, instead of believing like, well, it's my boyfriend, my girlfriend. Of course they want to talk to me. And that's where a lot of you guys are really going wrong. You're not really looking at your 3D to tell you what you actually believe. So tonight we're going to dig in deep with that. Recently, and Anders, I've shared this with you, a lot of my
hmm
clients. One of the things we really have to kind of drive home with them is that everything that's happening to you is exactly what you believe. So you really need. We talked about it, briefly in another one about examining the data, but that was kind of like with the good stuff and to kind of keep motivating yourself. This is, you'll know what your stories are if you're struggling to figure out what they are by looking at what is showing up right now. You guys need to remember your 3D is the shadow world. It is what you've been focusing on. And once you finally believe it, it shows up. That's why the bad stuff does show up pretty quickly, because usually when you're afraid of something, you absolutely believe it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be afraid of it. And that's why it shows up instantly. And the good stuff, for some reason, you guys think you're not worthy, you're not deserving, you screwed up too much. You're looking at the circumstance, but the circumstance itself is what you were believing. You don't try to change a circumstance by changing a circumstance, trying to get in there and meddle with it. You change the circumstance by changing the beliefs you had that caused that bad circumstance.
But I
This is
also
something, yeah, go
I
ahead.
also love the idea too that fear is like a negative faith. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
negative belief, So you have lots of belief in the bad thing happening, but you're not. But you could be spending all that time believing for the good thing to happen.
Yeah, fear is the bad belief, and belief is the good belief, or faith is the good belief. And you have to realize that both are constantly working and manifesting things for you. You can't turn it off. You can't stop it. That's why Neville even tells you to do sat, so that when you go into sleep, you're choosing the path that you're going to take your mind down that night and focus on for 8, 9 hours, But make no mistake, if you fear something, you believe in it, and it's going to show up quickly, you know? Now,
hmm
again, let's be sensible here, because some people hear that and they're going to freak out too. Like, if you believe you're going to be run over by elephants, you're probably not going to be that scared of it, and the chances of that happening are going to be slim to none. And like, you have to really ask yourself, like, how afraid, like, I'm not afraid of walking out of the house tomorrow and getting stung by killer bees and dying because I don't live in an area where there even are killer bees, you know? But I'm not going to lie. Every summer we have these giant wasps that are in this bush by the, front door of the building where I go into work. And I'm always worried one of those wasps is going to be there. And I'm looking like a fool running and diving into the door trying to avoid a wasp, and sure enough, they show up every time. And then I decided no more wasps, and I haven't seen one since. At first, it started with them putting up a little like net. And then I was like, wow, look at that. I said no more wasps, and they put up a net. And then I kept believing, well, now that there's a net, I won't see any wasps. And I went from seeing them behind the net to not seeing them at all until finally them posting a note saying, hey, there's no more wasps. We were able to get rid of them. And that's the other thing we kind of want to talk about tonight, right, Anders? I talked to you a little bit about this. When you start to believe, at first, you're going to see very tiny signs, really teeny tiny signs. Like for me, the first sign was quiet, no arguing. It was every time we talked, it was just explosive arguments, right? Then it was silence one time. I remember when I first started affirming, I was like, wow, we had a conversation. We didn't argue. And it was just like, okay, got it. Thanks. See you later. And I was like, whoa, quiet. And I remember thinking, maybe this is working. And then I believed more. And then because I believed more, I got other little signs. Well, that time she was nice. That time she said, thank you. Look at that. This time, instead of giving me a bunch of dirty clothes back, she washed them for me. And I was like, wow, that was actually nice. She didn't have to do that. Maybe she's not as mad at me anymore. And all of those little things were making me, over time, believe more and more that things were turning a corner. And then I got another thing and another thing and another thing until eventually what happened was the belief was there that like, hey, we're back together. Every time I thought about it, it was loving. There was no struggle in my mind, no remembering the bad shit that was going on. And there was bad stuff going on, but I just ignored it. And I just kept seeing her as that loving person. Same thing with money. I got well, in actuality, the first time I got lucky, but I think it's again because, and Anders has some great Bible quotes that we're going to use that'll explain that too. I really kind of had this really firm belief that with everything I was going through, God was not going to keep piling it on. And when I thought I was going to get evicted and not be able to see my daughter and have to move and all stuff, I was like, no. I don't think after all this, that's going to happen. And so when I did manifest money, it was in a large sum at first. It was enough to pay back the back rent I owed and then gave myself even more. So, but what I've noticed with manifestation, and Anders and I, we've talked about this a lot, is that at first it just starts with something tiny. You almost have to kind of look for it without looking for it. You'll just kind of notice it was a little bit better this time and run with that and say, it's working. It's working. Look, it was a little bit better this time. It's working. And then don't overanalyze everything either. It's really weird. You have to somehow notice it, but not overanalyze it. And I was, Anders, you remember those conversations. I overanalyzed every little detail. It was insane. It was like everything was under the microscope. What do you think about this? But then she said this. Well, this inflection meant this. And don't you think she meant this? And it was like, he was just like, just stop. Just like, take it. It's a gift, and that's what you guys have to do. And over time, what will happen is you will see more and more little signs. And then eventually they'll become medium size. And then what you would consider, holy shit, that's a miracle. And usually when you see that, you're kind of like, oh, this is so done. It's done. And you're not even worried about it. Like a lot of times clients will be like, you know what? I'm not even really working on them at all. Like I'm really enjoying working on myself. And that's stuff you and I talked about, right? We talked about, we kind of knew when we're there because we're not worried about it anymore. And we're just really working on believing in the best version of ourselves, believing we deserve stuff, believing that that's not even on its way, that it's here now. And so we give ourselves the relief of it. And then that's when it shows up right away. But if you think about it, that's what you're doing with the bad stuff too, and why we say you're always manifesting. Because with the bad stuff, you're really focused on it. You're really afraid of it. You're constantly worrying about it. And then it shows up at first in little signs, right? You're like, well, this happened and it's starting to blow up. How many posts are there on the subreddit where it's like, well, things are starting to get worse, not better. And they're noticing all that stuff. And then they come back like a month later, it got even worse. And then finally they're like, that's it. I'm completely blocked from everything now. There's no fucking hope. Well, they kept persisting in the bad story. They kept focusing on the bad circumstances. Guys, we now know that science has said that matter cannot change while being observed. And everything is matter, including thoughts. It's all energy, matter, whatever you want to call it. And science is telling us if you focus on it, it can't change. But it's also found that if you turn away from it, it reverts back to a wave-like form and moves and can turn into anything else you expect. So stop making the circumstance stick around. And the way you stop doing that is by ignoring it, forgetting it, letting it go, saying that was the past. It's not like that now. And then getting really clear with what the new circumstance is. So, Anders, do you have anything you want to add here? I'm sorry. I know I kind of took over. We're a little rusty, guys. I apologize.
No, this is good. Just one of the things which springs to mind too is that, kind of think about it, if you try to take a step back, if you're in this situation, is that, every time you're kind of like manifesting these fears and worrying about stuff, and in a lot of cases, if you're really believing it, you're kind of reliving this imaginary experience. In a lot of ways, like your body can't tell the difference between, let's say, you relive some scary incident, or let's say, really think about, let's say, being chased by like a lion or something like that. And you're like, your adrenaline starts pumping and all that. So you're actually manifesting the experience as far as like you and your body is concerned, and kind of putting yourself through it, if you really believe it. So that's not a lot of fun, even if there aren't any lions around. But then also,
no, but it's a great example is dogs. I was as a kid, I had a dog jump on me, bite me, and after that, I was scared shitless of dogs. And you're right. When you said that, it really resonated, because back in the day when I would see a dog, I would replay that moment in my head and relive it. And I was like, oh my God, that's the dog. It would be, the dog that bit me was like a big German Shepherd. And the dogs I was getting chased by were these like really cute mutts from the pound that were just wanted to lick me more than anything else and jump on me and play with me because I had a ball in my hand. I was like, and I ran. And everybody's like, don't run. They think you want to play. And all I could think of was the dog behind me is going to bite me like the big German Shepherd did. And I would freak out. I instantly went back to that place and couldn't tell the difference. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that means that every little circumstance you saw relating to dogs, you just saw this totally different reality around it, and you couldn't even see the circumstance, which was that the dog just wanted to play and be your friend, and maybe even wanted to heal you of your fear of dogs, maybe like, no, I'm not like the other dogs, that one dog who was mean. But all you could see was the bad experience which happened in the past, because you were manifesting your belief system about dogs and what all dogs are like.
Yep. And when I got older later, and we got a dog to help me get over the fear, every time I saw another dog, I would no longer go back to the bad place with the German Shepherd. And I would think of my dog, Daisy, and, her being the sweetest, cuddliest, nicest dog ever. And I started to associate all dogs with that. And I even use it on my daughter because, we had our dog when Lucy was little and he passed away. And then for some reason, Lucy got nervous around dogs. And then I started saying, no, she's fine with them. And then I noticed, again, in the beginning, little things like the first time we walked by a dog and she didn't jump or try to run across the street, and I had to grab her and be like, you can't do that. Like, it just went like, nope, no big deal. I'll just stand on this side too. Then it was like, oh, I'm not even going to move. It's going to be fine. And even if the dog jumped a little bit, she'd be like, it's okay. And I was like, wow, she's getting better. She's getting better. And then slowly but surely, she got over her fear of dogs. And looking back on it, it happened with everything that way. Like I told you guys in the beginning, when I was left alone with her, I didn't have a lot of dad experience. And I was really scared being left alone with a little 1-year-old by myself. And she would come home and take a shower. It was a pain in the butt to get her in the bathtub. Then it was a pain in the butt to get her out of the bathtub. I felt like a failure because this 1-year-old wouldn't get to bed before 10, 11 o'clock at night, which I found out later. A lot of kids do that anyway, when they're not going to school and stuff. They take naps during the day. But I felt like a real failure. And I was like, I got to get her into bed. So it was like a 3-block walk. And I was like, she's going to do whatever I need her to do tonight. And that night, I kind of like forgot about it. I said it, forgot about it, let it go. I have a belief that my kid is a good kid anyway. And she was like, Dad. I'm like, what? She's like, Vampirina's on. I'm like, you want to watch it? She's like, no, Dad. Remember, I get in the tub for the first part of Vampirina. And then I get out of the tub so I can watch the end of it. But you record it for me. And I was like, oh, yeah, yeah, okay. And she just took control. She jumped in the tub and she goes, don't worry, this time I won't stay in too long. And I was like, I'm just happy you're getting in. But then she got out. And then she's like, and then I said to her, like, thanks. And she was like, no, you were right. I realized I want to see the end and you can tape it from the beginning and I only have so much time. And I was like, okay. Normally she's just like, I don't care. I want to watch it, put it on. I'm not going to bed. Screw you, but she changed, and again, I let it go. I didn't worry about it. I wasn't thinking about it anymore. And that's the other thing clients are always saying to me, when I'm making these daily lists, I find that I struggle getting my list when I'm worried about it, when I'm like, I need this list to prove to me that this stuff works. But then they'll be like, well, I got everything but this one thing. And the one thing was like, I was going to see somebody. I remember one time it was a back tattoo, a red balloon. And I was like, do you really give a shit if you see a back tattoo? Do you really give a shit if you see a red balloon? They're like, not really. I was like, then who gives a shit? So you missed one. Who cares? And they were like, what's funny is when I stepped out of my house the next morning, the first freaking thing I saw was my neighbor go running by in her, leggings and a sports bra. And she had a big ass back tattoo. A little kid on the way to school and he had a balloon and he was screaming at his mom, no, I'm taking my balloon. I'm taking my balloon. And I was like, look, they ran in front of you and the kid screamed so you would see that he had the balloon. You were never in any danger of missing it.
He was on a mission.
Yeah. And that's the difference between believing with faith and believing with fear, right? When we believe with fear, it's on our mind 24/7, right? Like all of you guys that have created
It's not going to happen.
Created the third party, you were really worried. I'll be honest with you. I never got cheated on, but I don't think I was ever worried about being cheated on. I kind of knew that the type of woman I was attracted to wasn't going to do that. And I wouldn't date somebody unless I really trusted them anyway. I mean, my wife has had my phone code since day one, but I don't think she's ever used it to like look at my email or look at my social media. If anything, it's like, hey, I'm in the shower and my dad or sister's calling and she knows the code to pick up and be like, hey, and talk to him, but I've never checked her phone for anything. And I don't think she's ever checked my phone for anything, because again, why date somebody if you're not going to trust them? She's not the same as every other girl I went out with, even if I did get cheated on, but I really had that belief. And the closest I ever got to it was a girl and I were dating. And she's like, I think I kind of like somebody else, but I didn't cheat on you and I wouldn't ever cheat on you. And I don't even know if anything's going to happen, but I just think that you and I are not a good fit anymore. And I was like, I kind of agree. That was close to it. And I was like, and I guess maybe that's why I never worried about anybody cheating, because I just always assumed if you started to maybe like somebody else, they would come and say, hey, this isn't working out. And I think I might want to give it a try, And so I was like, that's a mature thing to do. It made sense to me. It happens. It sucks. But, I think I was ready for the breakup too. But that's always how I looked at it. I never, thought that, people cheat. And so I never had that happen to me. Not once. I can't think of a single relationship where that happened. So, but a lot of you guys that get cheated on, it's one of many that have cheated on you. You keep remembering what the old person did. Yeah. And you had a really good way of looking at dating too. I remember there were certain girls that you even knew it wasn't going to work out with, like there was one, I don't even remember which girl it was, but I just remember us being on the rooftop and you going, oh, this is not going to work out. She's totally going to break my heart. But I was like, then why do it? And you're like, well, because right now she's not. The experience is great, And I think that's a great way to look at it too, especially a lot of you younger people with SPs. I don't know, Anders, you were like me, you dated a lot. I think that really helped you because I know when you met your wife, it was pretty instant, right? Like you guys, you kind of felt like she's the one. Same thing with me and mine because I dated so many that I knew that she was, none of the things I didn't want, all the things I wanted, and then some things I didn't even know I wanted,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think you, me, and our other friend all got together with our wives very quickly. With our other friend, though, he had known her for years. But I think once he grew up, too, he realized, what am I doing? Like, the perfect person is right here.
Yeah.
And, and it was like no big deal. I think I got engaged pretty quickly. I think you guys got engaged pretty quickly, too, right?
Yeah, it's probably like
or had a
year and a half, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. For us, it was like I broke all my rules. It was like first date, didn't try to sleep with her. stayed the night, stayed up talking. Next morning we wake up and she's like, I don't want to date anybody else. Will you just be my boyfriend? And I was like, sure. Normally I would have ran, right? And then very different from all the other girls I dated, didn't have that like, kind of past that like I definitely had. So I couldn't really complain if somebody else had it. But to me, that was a bad thing. Like I was like, experience means you got it, I got it. It's going to be great. If one of us has more, somebody's going to end up being the teacher. And I never wanted anything to do with that. But I didn't mind on any of that stuff. Like it was like we used to say she was the exception to the rule for everything, and me too with her. But it's just some of you guys get so caught up in these relationships and you're not living on your own. You're not paying your own bills. That's not a real adult relationship. And you're going to realize that when you are, that these people you thought were the love of your life, you're like, that was sweet. That was my first little puppy love. And, and you're going to realize a real relationship is like what I have now. Like when we're both on our own and taking care of our own stuff. And we have to balance all that stuff with this. We don't have to sneak off someplace to have sex in a car because we each have our own apartments. We don't have 5 roommates living with us and all that stuff. It's very different, So, but getting back to what we're talking about now, your thoughts, your feelings, all of that stuff are going to shape your beliefs. You're past all of that. And you have to let all of that go. When you see the circumstance starting to form, you have to say, okay, I'm manifesting this. This is the step towards the bad way. And, it's step 1. This is my proof that things are starting to go sour. So I need to change my story about all this. I need to change my belief. And Anders is going to come in at the end with his Bible stuff. So I'm just going to share something a client told me the other day. I had really stressed this to her, and I really talked about that, how she needed to work on her belief and stop trying to work on getting it. Work on the belief, changing your mind about the belief first. Then we can go get it. Until you've changed your mind, we cannot go get it. And she said, when you said that to me, I stopped trying to get it and I just worked on changing my mind. And I got to be honest, it was so great. It took all the pressure off. And then I ended up getting what I wanted right away.
Yeah.
Focusing on the belief and working on your belief versus working on getting it, the relationship, the money, the whatever, helps, because all you're doing is trying to change your belief and you're not really fighting against something, and you're definitely not looking and going, it's not here. It's not here. I'm working on something because I don't have it. But if you're just changing your belief, you're saying, I don't like the way I think about this thing, and I'm going to change it because it's going to make my world better and make me happier. And it's a lot easier to attack something that way or approach something that way than trying to be like, oh, well, I have to get this, and if I don't get it, my world's going to fall apart, and make a big deal about it. So I don't know. I'm really struggling here because you can come in because I'm trying to say this stuff, and I hope I'm getting it across to you guys the right way. I did it in that post too. I was like, I don't know if I quite got this through to everybody the way I wanted to. So maybe you can kind of expand.
Part of what's happening too is you're focusing on lack. You're focusing on the impossibility of it happening, or that it's not happening yet. You're just focusing on and it's pretty hard to imagine, like, if you're like, oh, I can't, like, whatever, ride a bike or whatever, it's so you're a lot more likely to fall. Or if you're trying to what's a good one, like when you're like walking along the top of a roof line or along a curb, it's like you're in no danger of hurting yourself when you're walking on the curb. But if you believe you can't do it, you're going to fall off that curb as you're walking along it. So I think there's a lot of that to it, which people have to look out for. I think that's a big part of it. Let me see if I can pull up that.
I mean, even I'm guilty of it right now. I keep
it.
saying I don't know how to explain this to you guys the right way, and it keeps happening where I'm fumbling over my words. So I'm going to change that story and say I'm going to get this out to you guys and explain it the right way, and it's going to click for everybody, and you all are going to be manifesting masters after you listen to this. So everybody has to change their story sometimes. Nobody's perfect. And you guys have to remember that. So you have to find a way to give yourself grace, but be like, I'm done with this story. It doesn't serve me anymore. It's hurting me. And there's no point. And it's like you have an abusive relationship with your own brain or your own thoughts or your own stories. You've got to walk away from it and say, I deserve better, And then again, just get up, and start doing it and pay attention. Even if your first sign is just quiet. Well, today was just quiet. No attacks, no bad thoughts at all, just quiet. Great, it's getting better. Great, I'm starting to believe. Keep going. And again, guys, when you're affirming, don't just, so many of you guys stop at relief. You're like, okay, I don't feel bad anymore. I can stop. No, no. That is when you are finally at the place where when you say it, it'll go into action. Until then, all you're doing is calming yourself down. So it doesn't do anything. It doesn't go out in the world and change anything or move anything. It's when you get to that calm place and you start to say it, then it does stuff, because you're not fighting yourself anymore. You're not fighting the old circumstance or old story, But you really got to understand that everything in your life right now is a belief you had pretty recently. So the good things that happened to you, you were believing they were going to work out. The bad things that happened to you, you were probably dreading, And a lot of you guys say, well, I didn't wish this. You might not have wished exactly that, but you did. A lot of you guys will tell me, well, I didn't wish exactly that, but I kind of had this, I don't know, this weird feeling of like impending doom. Something was around the corner. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was waiting for them to show me what was wrong with them because they seemed too perfect. And that does that as well, So, Anders, why don't we kind of talk about some of the Bible verses? Because I think, when we were reading them to each other, they really got this message across very clearly.
Okay. Yeah, we have a whole long list of them. So, well, one good one we had was we both really liked was from Joshua 1:9, and
yeah,
this
that was
is
a great
God
one.
talking to Joshua, and he's telling him to go out and conquer the Holy Land, and he says, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified nor dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go."
Amen.
Yeah. No, that's a great one. And
you guys really have to remember that too. When you get scared, a lot of you guys just abandon all hope, abandon all faith. You forget that God is right there. Again, we talked about this in another podcast, but you got to kind of look at it like when I was a child of the 80s. So, shows like Different Strokes, all that, they were like my favorites growing up. And in it was this little kid, Arnold. And Arnold had a nemesis, and he had the greatest nemesis ever. The nemesis's name was the Gooch. And Arnold was always like, got to watch out for the Gooch. Well, hopefully the Gooch doesn't get my lunch money. Arnold was always telling you that the Gooch was around and looking for him and going to steal his money and beat him up. And Arnold just couldn't take it one day. And Mr. Drummond was like, Arnold, you have to stand up for yourself. He's like, well, if I stand up for myself, he's going to flatten me down, and he makes his little joke. And he's like, well, sometimes, being flat on your ass hurt is still, feels better than punking out and getting, played. And so Arnold decides today's the day, and Willis hears about it. Willis is his older brother. And so Willis doesn't let Arnold know he's around on the playground, and the Gooch confronts Arnold. And it's great the way they shoot it too. You never saw the Gooch or what he looked like, because, he was this terror, and I don't think they could ever cast a kid that was, had that. But so it's from the Gooch's point of view, and Arnold's like, I'm tired of this, and I've had it with you. And what you see behind him, you see the Gooch kind of look up a little bit, is Willis, his much older, taller, bigger brother. And he's taking his finger and doing the, like, I'm going to cut your head off thing. And the Gooch kind of shakes a little bit, and you realize, Arnold still thinks it's him. And he's like, oh, look at you. Now that I stand up for myself, you're backing up, huh? You're not so tough, Gooch. And I am stronger than you, and I can, and the whole time Willis is just like taking his fist into his hand, like, I'm going to pound you like a piece of meat. And the Gooch's hands go up. He's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And he starts to back up. Same thing with Richie Cunningham and the Fonz. Remember that, Anders? The Fonz would always be behind Richie.
Right.
He'd be like, yeah, I'm going to stick up for him. And he'd turn around like, hey, did everybody see that? And Fonz is like, you were tough, man. You were really tough. And he didn't realize that Fonzie was right behind him going like, I'm going to pound you like a piece of meat too, So, you have to remember that your Willis, your Fonzie is always behind you. I kind of like that, knowing Fonzie's always behind me. Maybe that's how I should look at God, as God is my Fonzie and he's always behind me, But
yeah, no, absolutely about
you
that.
You got to remember, he doesn't leave you ever. And a lot of you guys the reason why you're not getting what you want is because you're not putting God in this. And I know that this might be controversial. I know I'm the only coach that really talks about this. I see all these YouTube stuff, and nobody really talks about God. And God is what this is all about. You didn't lose your SP. You're not poor because you're supposed to take this journey to get your SP back. The journey is to learn to love yourself, because that's why you're not getting anybody. That's why the same thing happens over and over again, or something similar with everybody. But the goal of this journey was not for you and your boyfriend to get back together, you and your girl. It was for you and God to become one, and for you to really understand who you are.
Absolutely.
Same thing with money. It was for you to realize you are just as worthy of money as anybody else. And people always say, why do bad people get good things? Because they still have the belief they deserve them. Most bad people are narcissists anyway, so why wouldn't a narcissist believe he deserves everything? But then look at their relationships and you'll see narcissists usually don't believe they're going to have a lot of friends.
Yeah, they miss out on the best things.
Yeah, you'll have a person that's a total asshole and gets everything they want, but they don't have anybody to go share or celebrate it with. And there's tons of examples of that in your world. People people you see on TV, everything. It's all around you. There's examples of it. And that's because that's what God is trying to teach you and show you. Not, your boyfriend left, your girlfriend left, here's how you get them back. That was the thing that God knew would get you to finally get up off your ass and change for. It's something that hurt really bad and led you to start asking these questions, so that God could show you the truth and what life was about, and that you're here to experience.
Yeah, he'll prevent those things.
Yeah. Like we said, God had the understanding he was God, but he didn't have the experience of being God until he created the universe. And God tells you you're created in his image and likeness, but he says, I am everything. So what he means is you're a creator like him. And that's what you're here to do. And once you realize this, you're going to realize how unimportant what you do for a living is, how unimportant money really is when you can just make it at will, how unimportant being popular is, what worrying about what people think about you, when you can change all of it. Who cares? You realize I'm here to create. So if this circumstance is coming up, and Jesus even tells you, things are not going to just stop happening. In fact, they're going to happen and continue to happen so that it can be a reminder to you, because as humans, we forget easily. A reminder to you that God stays with you always, no matter what.
Yeah. And I think one thing which might help too is actually, I was hearing the other day was advice that to keep in mind in these situations, that kind of like we were talking about the fawns, and is that the battle is the Lord's, and don't make it personal, and that can help a lot, because if you feel like it's it's up to you, or it's personal, or you start taking offense, or you feel like you have to make it happen, then of course it's going to be upsetting and traumatizing. But if someone's in the wrong, and you leave it up to God to help sort things out, and don't take it so personally, that can help a lot. And then so instead, just keep thanking God, and let God do the rest. Just focus on that, and that's part of what that real belief is, of kind of living in the end, is believing that God's going to sort things out. He's going to bring everything together and work things out, and that's why it's so great, like all the different Neville stories, because, Neville definitely had some, crazy situations he was in, but, he had faith that God was going to get him through it. And he didn't make a bad situation worse by getting offended, or getting into his head, or not, or thinking he had to fix the situation. Like when he was in the army and he wanted to go back home, he instead of raging against the colonel or whatever, he waited he was patient, and he let God sort it out, and he did. But he also persisted in his belief, and he
and even like when he had his trunk stolen too, he wasn't focused on getting revenge, getting that person in trouble with the law. He let it go. He forgave them, let it go, and was like, no, I'm going to just focus on me carrying this big ass trunk home and dropping it off and getting the relief. That's what he focused on. And a lot of you guys, listen, sometimes the bad thing that happens too needs to happen so that person can finally learn a lesson and really understand. One thing I hear that cheaters say all the time is, I don't know why I cheated, because when I did, all it made me do is realize I loved him or her more.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe I was with this other person. It just made me want to go run back to them. Now it doesn't excuse it. You can avoid it by never worrying about it. But sometimes, you might not even see the bad thing that happens to them as a result of that choice. You got to trust that God will give it to them. But I got to tell you, somebody who found out later, all these people that do you wrong, if they're really wrong, they will get what they deserve. They're going to do it to somebody else, and it's going to backfire. And so just leave that stuff up to God and just focus on what you want. Don't focus on the circumstance. Don't focus on the past. Don't focus on anything other than what do I want this to be now? And then start to believe that that's what it is now. And that's the quickest, fastest way to get it. And ignore the rest. Let's talk about some of these because there were some really good quotes we
Yeah.
found.
Do you want to
Bible
talk
quotes.
about John 14:14 next?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I'll read it. It's so I guess a bigger context. Well, actually, I love the second line. So it basically says, "If you ask me anything in my name, I will do it." And but then it also follows up with, "If you love me, you will keep my commandments." Um, and yeah, so that's a great one. So if you're in the will of God, asking something of Him,
Wait, sorry. I
and
just want to say something. When
yeah,
he says keep his commandments, I'll tell you why. It's not because God is like, hey, obey me or else God. It's because God knows that if you're living a good life, you're going to believe you're a good person and you're going to believe you deserve good things. It's when we lie, manipulate, play all these games with people. That's when we start to think, I don't really deserve this relationship. I don't really deserve the money from this person because I'm tricking them into paying me. I don't really deserve this opportunity in this job because I lied to get it. He's telling you if you obey the commandments, they're basic tenets to live a good life, and they're going to make you believe you're a good person. And that's going to make it easier when you do ask for things to believe that you're going to get it.
yeah,
So
and you
it's
know
not
what?
about God controlling you.
I just realized, yeah, I didn't because when I read that, what I always remember is that there are actually only two commandments, which Jesus is talking about in this context, which is to love God and to love one another. And
Yeah.
that's what Jesus says is a new commandment. So that's what he's saying. And then it also makes me think of one letter 1 John, which everyone should read if you haven't and be familiar with, because there he just talks about how God is love. And so, in fact, and it's interesting. So when I read, "If you love me, you'll keep my commandments," I'm actually just all I read is, "If you ask me anything in my name, I will do it." All I'm reading next is God is love.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
interesting. So yeah. So thanks for bringing it up because what I hear is totally different from what you might hear on the page if you're not familiar with the rest of the
Yeah.
John's
Because I know
writing.
I know a lot of people are like me. I was a very lapsed Catholic, and I fought against the church. There's some things I'm not in line with that they believe that I don't believe. I kind of really like this new pope because he kind of looks at things from a very sensible point of view, and just kind of like what is the most loving thing to do. And, like more so worry about yourself before you go worrying about everybody else. Make sure you're good with God. Make sure you're being, then you can go worry about what everybody else is doing kind of thing. Even himself, he's like, it's not my, but, you know, I really found that part of my change was staying away from all the bad behaviors that would get me in trouble in a relationship when I thought it was going to go south by trying to manipulate things, say things, or get back at them. Like I was bullied as a kid, and then one day I grew up and I was much larger than everybody else, and I just went after all my bullies, and it's something I'm not proud of. But you got to kind of let all that stuff go, and you got to trust that God makes everything right in the end anyway. And you got to focus on you, and you got to focus on the story, and stop making this boyfriend be like the boyfriend before, or this girlfriend, because the other girlfriend. Let all that shit go and just try to also live a really good life. Be kind to everybody. Basically everything you want your SP to give you, give to everybody else and them, right? You want them to forgive you, forgive everybody that wronged you. You want them to give you
Yep.
another chance, give everybody else a chance. You want them to hear you out, hear other people out, you know?
And forgiveness is a big part of having the prayers answered. Jesus says that very explicitly. And actually,
Yeah.
I realized too is that actually when I kind of read a statement like, "If you love me, you will keep my commandments," what I'm now almost reading it as is, "If you love me, like that's keeping my commandments," and like the rest of it will like flow naturally. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
it also ties into another I think, point.
And the
Yeah.
commandments aren't like, you're not going to suffer if you follow them. You're not going to suffer if you don't covet your neighbor's wife and try to sleep with her. You're not going to suffer if you listen to your mom and dad. You're
Yeah.
not
I mean,
going to
what kind of
suffer
person would want to
if
do
you put
those
God
things? I think they're
first.
missing
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, put God first and don't worship false idols. Those are not things that he's like, because he's a jealous or worried God. No, but if you read in the Bible, he does admit that he was at one time a jealous God. And I think from what I understand with the Bible, I see a God that evolves. I see a God that even himself a long time ago, maybe, and was not afraid to share those things that popped up in his head. And he's like, and I had to change him, and just like you need to change him. But the other
And
thing
another
too
way to
is,
read it too, I think, which is I advise people to try, is read it from the idea of like it's people's own ideas of who God is evolve over time.
yeah,
And so because there's a lot of times, and you could say that's God evolving, but there's a lot of times where God explicitly says like, oh, you said you want to do this and that and this and that, but that wasn't really my plan. That was like your idea.
yeah. Oh, and God also is very clear that he is both good and bad, and that you get what you believe too. He talks about that. The way you see God is how God is going to show up in your life. And think about it. Think about all the posts we've had on the sub where people are like, I feel like God's punishing me. And then that's what shows up in their life. He's not discerning, because he knows whichever way he goes, you're going to learn a lesson. So how is that bad? Right? He knows if you think I'm punishing you and then you realize you're really punishing yourself and you stop doing that, then you learn not to do that. You learn not to assign bad beliefs or bad things about people or me, because you'll know we're literally a mirror. We're going to show up that way. It's like I told you guys too. I had the story. God gives me these fucking consolation prizes, but never the thing I want.
Mm-hmm.
He'll
That's the
even bring me
story.
close to it and rip the rug out from underneath me. And I was like, you motherfucker, every time, you know? And God was like, I didn't do that. That's a story you told. Because I literally
Mm-hmm.
changed that story and started saying, God always comes through for me. He gives me everything I desire and more. God always comes through for me. He never fails me. And then that's what started to happen. When I said he gives me everything I desire and more, not only did I get what I want, but there was always some big bonus with it. Got your wife
Definitely.
back and another $100,000. Got this back and you got another this. Got enough to pay your rent and you got another 15,000 for you. Owed 10 in rent, gave you that, and 15,000 for you. Because I was saying he gives me everything I want and more. That's how he started showing up.
And that's why there's two really good parables to read.
And that's your free will, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
guys. That is your free will. And that's why free will is just between you and God, and why it doesn't matter with your SP or with the money or the person giving you the job or anything. Your free will is just believing in God or not believing in God. So when you believe in God and you're like, no, I'm loved by everybody, again, we go back to the mirror analogy. They reflect that you're loved, because that's what you're saying. And your self concept, your self love, the amount of love you have for yourself is, I find, always equal to the amount of love you think God has for you, and the amount of love you give God and have for Him. Will determine on how much you think you deserve love too. So those things are really important. Sorry, Anders, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's two parables everyone should read. I think we've discussed both of them already, but definitely go back and read them. One of them is the parable of the talents, which is where the king or whatever is going away to another country, and he leaves people a bunch of money, and then they comes back and he's like, "Oh, what'd you do with the money?" And the first two servants invested it and got a return. So he's like, "Oh, good job, guys." But then the third servant is like, he doesn't invest it, and he doesn't and there's no return, and guy, and so the king's like, "Oh, what's up with this? Why'd you do that?" And if you and it just seems like maybe the guy's being a jerk and to the servant because he didn't invest the money, and it's like it's not all about. But then if you read it carefully, you realize that the servant says, "Oh, I knew that you were a hard man and you reap where you don't sow. So I was scared, so I just invested it. I just buried it in the ground so that it would be safe and I could give it back to you so you wouldn't get mad at me." And then
Mm-hmm.
and then the king's like, "Yeah, well, you're a liar, because if that was really true, you would have actually given it to the bank and give it to money lenders and at least earned a little bit of interest. So you're definitely not being honest here. And really what it
Yeah.
was is that was just that guy's story about the king. And, he refused to have a good relationship with the king and treat the king like someone who was on his side. And, the other servants didn't have that problem.
That's
And
why
then,
when the king showed back up, he was a dick about it too. You know?
yeah, because the guy really was, had a really bad view of his character and, had no interest in, King hadn't actually done anything, but
And
it was
neither did the
fun.
guy, so he really had nothing to worry about. But the master showed up pissed, because he had a bad story about him. He's like, you thought so little of me, you were so afraid of me, like this guy was expecting this guy to come back. But again, like he also said, well, why didn't you at least invest it in a bank and get some return too? So his bad story is also like, well, fuck you too. I'm not going to put it in a bank. I'm just going to give you what you gave me to hold and nothing more, nothing less. You
Exactly.
know,
It was done out of resentment, and he was probably, mad
and
that maybe
fear.
he wasn't the king, or yeah, and fear, and thinking this guy's a bad person, and rather than thinking about. But this beautiful story though, which I think illustrates the reality of the situation, is to go read the parable of the prodigal son. It's really easy to find.
I love that one.
Yeah, and then read it as the parable of the good father. And the more you look into it, just read it really closely, and you realize that this father, I mean, this is like thousands of years ago, especially written in a culture where nobody would act like this. The father just really bent over backwards. He did all this stuff for his son, who was totally out of line. His son was out partying and wasted all his money, and but he didn't chase him and all that, but he was there waiting for him to come back. And when he came back, he welcomed him with open arms. And then the other sad thing is that the other son who stayed at home didn't realize he didn't have a good relationship with his dad either. And it's in some ways it's a sad story, but it's also a beautiful story because despite the, I guess you could say, the two lousy bums that this dad had for sons who didn't
Yeah.
really appreciate their dad, he didn't care. He still loved his sons, and he was there for them. And when they wanted to have a good relationship with their father, he was there for them. I mean, there's no question about that. So I think that can be a really helpful story for people to read. And
I think
then,
when you're in
mhm,
victim mode, you see it from the son's
yes,
point of view. And then when
victim
you
mode.
graduate and you get out of that mode, the story makes a lot more sense because you see it from the father's point of view, you know?
Exactly.
And
Um,
you start to realize that's how you want to be with people in your life. And you start to realize, especially, that the father is an example of how God is with you. That no matter how much you screw up, no matter, I mean, and you've heard me literally curse God, say, I would love to be the guy putting the hammer to the nail on the cross. And,
yeah, we all are.
people
We all were
literally
that
backing
person
away
who
from me as I've
who
said
nailed
that.
him.
And God's like, whatever. He doesn't care. He loves you, He's not going to give up on you ever. He tells you constantly in the Bible, I never leave your side. Why are you worried? The gooch is in front of you, but I'm behind you telling the gooch, it's over, it's done. You have nothing to fear. And you have to practice that because it's hard. You have to change your story. You have to convince yourself there is nothing to be afraid of. And then again, God will show up and show you, see, you believe there was nothing to be afraid of. So I made it so there was nothing to be afraid of. But he's not going to force you either, because then he would be impeding on your free will. So if you believe God's not going to protect you, then he's not going to protect you. But he's going to say to you, well, that's your fault. I gave you the free will. You keep telling me you guys want free will, and I'm giving it to you, and you chose to believe I wouldn't be there for you. Had you believed I would have been, I would have been. You get what you believe, not what you desire, not what you want. The more you try to get the desire, the more you're focused on the fact that you don't have it. But changing your belief just means you're looking at it from a different point of view. You have a new story. It's like literally the mirror analogy again, stepping away from the mirror, changing your clothes and coming back and seeing after you've put it on and you've messed with your hair and make sure the jacket fits right, then you step in the mirror and you're like, new reflection, I like this outfit better, I like this reflection better, you know
Yeah,
and
definitely.
yeah.
And
All
I
right.
think another part of this too is this also ties in with the whole having God's fighting your battles for you. And I think it's like if you have that relationship, this can affect your relationships with other people, I think. Because
Oh
if your
yeah.
relationship with God is that God never comes through for you, things never work out, He's not doesn't have your back, well, then of course you're going to try to fight all your own battles for you because
Yeah.
you feel like you have to deal with it, and you're going to be you have to
You're
hit
going to
back
believe
to,
you're a
or
failure and you can't
yeah,
come through
that's
for
true too.
yourself. God won't help me. So if God fails me, I fail me. Everybody else will fail me. I shouldn't believe in anybody or trust anybody. You know, I
Yeah.
saw this great thing. It's like 3 years of therapy in 60 seconds, and it was like you don't have trust issues. You just keep avoiding red flags. You don't have this. You just and it tells you what you're really doing. It's not that you don't have trust issues. It's that like the guy will literally tell you, yeah, I've cheated in the past, and I don't want to really. And you ignore all that stuff, and then you're so surprised when exactly what he told you was going to happen, and then you worried about it happened to you. You know, he's saying like so much of this is just you not being real with yourself, you not trusting, you not having faith. It's not that you have all these problems. You really don't. It's just that the problem is you just don't, pay attention. You don't, I don't know. Again, I think the amount of love you have for yourself is very equal to the amount of love you think God has for you, and vice versa. And same thing with everybody else. So that's something you should really work on. And that's the whole point of this. When you lose your boyfriend, when you need the money, a big circumstance comes up so that God can show you with him anything can be overcome. And also, it's you that's overcoming it too, you know?
Yeah, it's a chance for God to reveal something to you about yourself and about Him and about your character and about what you're capable of. It's an opportunity for you to learn about yourself. I mean, God knows who you are, but often
Yeah,
we
that's
don't.
why when these people are like, "Oh, you have to do this or that so God knows," I'm like, "No, you don't. God knows what's in your heart."
Yeah, in fact, God even explicitly says, like, I don't need your service. I don't need your help with things, but He loves you. And so, He wants
In
to
fact,
have you
that's
be His
kind of why
family.
I tell you guys don't say thank you to me, because one, you're the one who goes off and does the work. I just gave you a little, help here and there. And two, like when you believe in yourself and you're kind of in that state, you don't really need that stuff anymore. It's all ego, and you don't really kind of care. Like you guys could write success stories and never even say I coached you or whatever. I wouldn't care. I'd be like, great, another example of what happens when you do the work. Like I don't really worry about things like getting credit for stuff anymore. I don't know. What I do worry more about is
Hmm.
like, hey, if I ask you to do this, please do this because it causes me a bunch of extra work when you don't. And that would really help me so I can spend more time helping you guys. And I feel like that's what God must deal with all the time too, right? He's like, do this. And we're like, we'll do this, but we'll do it our version, our way. And he's like, oh, damn it. Like, I'm going to be patient, but
Exactly.
like, if you would really just do it my way, I'm promising you this will work
Save a
out
lot of time.
exactly how you want. Yeah. But we have to learn that lesson sometimes. So
Absolutely.
my dad used to always say, why do you have to learn everything the hard way? You know?
Yeah. But I will say though, for those of you who are thanking Brian, please keep thanking him because gratitude is a good thing. So
No,
it's
don't
good.
stop,
It's
stop.
good. It's good to have gratitude in your heart. You don't have to tell him, but you can at least be thankful in your heart for.
No, somebody said to me today, they're like, "Oh, you're very ego driven because you're like, don't put anything but this." And we were just thanking you, and it was my fault. I did kind of word it incorrectly. I kind of worded it like, "If you want me to include you in this, prayer tonight, let me know." And I didn't realize I had worded it that way. I think what I meant to say was like, if you put "I believe" and like it, that's how I know to include you. But you didn't have to say anything to me about it. But I think the way I worded it was a little confusing, and that person pointed out, but in a really kind of shitty way too. And they were clearly in victim mode themselves. But I worded it wrong. But I just kind of, when you guys do it that way, what happens is if you follow it along, it doesn't delete it. But whenever you put something extra, for some reason these filters are super specific. So then it
Hmm.
pings me to go look at a mod mail or to go look at like why this thing was erased, and my phone just goes off constantly. So I'm like, just like it and say I believe, and then we're good. And then I don't have to deal with constant pings and thinking it's an emergency or I got to give somebody a fresh set of eyes or whatever. And it allows me to finish my day with my clients or with whatever else I'm doing. And then when I get back to you guys, my attention is 100% focused on you guys, just like it's 100% focused on my family or whoever else I'm with. So that's all it was. But yeah. So okay, let's get into some of these other ones because we had a lot of good ones, and I want to make sure we get through them
Yeah.
all tonight.
Also, okay. Well, we're not going to get through them all. I can tell you that right now. But I do also want
Okay.
to go. Well, we can do a couple more, and then I
Well,
do
we'll
want to do
list
like the
them.
Bible story hour one as
Yeah.
well. So because we have a good Bible story. Let's see. Do you want to do James 1:6? I know we've talked about James 1 before. We can talk
Yeah,
about
yeah.
it
Let's do
briefly.
that one,
Or
and then we can go into the Bible story.
okay, sounds good. So James 1 is great. Definitely worth reading it. So the quote by itself is, "But he must ask in faith without any doubting. For the one who doubts is like the surf of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind." And so the idea is there is that, and then actually here's the context. Let's give it the context, which is, well, first off, he talks about trials, and that trials build endurance, and then that kind of helps perfect you, and kind of like builds your character. But then he says, this is what I love. It says, "But if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all generously and without reproach, and it will be given to him." So ask God for wisdom, but when you ask, but you must ask in faith without any doubting. So you have to believe that God will give you that wisdom, and ask and believe, and be prepared to receive, and be patient. And then it talks about the importance of not being double-minded. So it's a really great part. Definitely recommend reading the beginning of James 1.
And guys, really listen to that, because that is kind of like your final test with all this. And it's kind of like your way of knowing it's about to happen, because usually right before it happens is this final test. And again, that's why I say don't worry about God. He knows what's in your heart. It's more about what's in your heart and if you're believing. Like so many people have said in their success story, right before it happened, something weird happened that made it almost, would have put a doubt in their head. And they said, you know what I decided to do though, was like say, screw it. Like Kayla with her boyfriend going on vacation with another girl. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
or Jack, where she was like, "Hey, I want to talk to you," but then she's like, "Hey, I don't know if we should because the other person's still in the picture." And he said, "I was worried about it." Sure enough, she said it, and then I was like, "Nope, no, it's done, it's done, it's done, it's done." And days later, she called, and that's why I keep giving shout outs to these people, because they really are examples of being true to the new story, not letting the old story in, choosing to believe, in those moments, and that's what also will make you believe you deserve it too. Because trust me, as a person who did it, you literally say to yourself, damn, look at that, man. I could have gone down that road again, been the old me, and I'm not that person anymore. I believed, I feel good, I feel closer to God. And then he hasn't even shown you anything yet. And when he does, you're like, totally deserved that, totally knew that was coming. That was awesome. Just made me believe even more. And that's what God does. The more you believe, the more he gives you to believe even more and more and more. That's why when they say it rains, it pours, but it goes both ways. When it pours and it's shitty, you keep complaining, you get more shitty things. When it gets better and you keep going, I can't lose, all I do is win, then that's all that keeps happening to you. Neville says a man is successful so long as he keeps his focus on success. The moment he takes his awareness off of it, he becomes that which he is now aware of. So if you're focused on being successful, you're going to stay. I've seen that with money. When I believe I was wealthy, I would make a bunch of money. When I started worrying about, oh, this is going to cost me this and that, the money would go away. New expenses would pop up. But then I would go, well, who gives a shit? I can manifest money at will. And all of a sudden, it didn't matter how many expenses came up, because I not only had the money to pay them, but my bank account wouldn't go any lower. I'd be able to pay all this stuff because I got a bunch of extra money to pay that. And my bank account would actually end up higher than it was somehow. I got more bills, but ended up having more money in the bank after even paying them, because I was like, who cares? I can manifest more at will. I was never in any danger of losing what I got. And so many of you guys get it. And then as soon as you get it, you're like, oh no, I'm going to lose it. Perfect example: money, boyfriends, girlfriends. You guys want it, then you get it, and you're like, oh no, I might lose it. That's why poor people that win the lottery are broke in a couple of years. They have a poor mentality. It's why rich people who don't know anything about money never worry about going bankrupt, even when they file for bankruptcy. They're like, well, that was my company that went bankrupt, not me. No one puts their own money in that. That'd be stupid. I'm always protected. Money never runs out. Daddy gave me a debit card that always has money on it. They believe they're protected. They got lawyers and business managers and all that stuff. The money is never going to run out. Even if it does, like I've been recently kind of rewatching Entourage. Vince never really worries that the money is going to run out until like towards the end of the series, when he's like,
Yeah.
maybe I've had a good run. He even forgets that he was always like, guys, who cares? Everything works out. Like he
Yep.
says that to him, and he goes, what idiot told you that?" He's like, "You stupid." He used to say that all the time. And they're like, "Yeah, bro, that was like your mantra. You always said that. Like, look around, look what we got. Did you ever think we would be here? Like, guys, it'll always fix itself." And then when he starts saying it again, he literally gets the Scorsese movie. Things literally change. You know, he's on this really horrible set where he has to take the second lead. The main actor keeps stealing his lines because the director's like, "I don't like Vincent Chase. He sucks." He gets in a fight with him. The movie like blows up, and he can't even get Gus Van Sant to cast him in a movie or let him even read. And his manager is like, "I'm going to go fight for Vince," and forces him to watch the dailies from this movie that went under. Because one, he knew he was good in it, and two, he wanted Vince to hear, you know, that director said you suck, but look, a better director who's really well known that you respect actually thought you were brilliant in it. So fuck that guy. Who cares what he thinks? You know, and he ends up giving him a part, and then he gets the score. Like everything, he changes his story about himself and goes back to his old story, which was the good one, and things start getting good again. You know, but I mean, that show is a perfect example of like when the guy believes about himself. And then you have on the opposite, Johnny Drama, who's always like bragging about stuff because he's really insecure. Vince never tells stories about when he's on set, but Drama's always like, "That happened to me, bro," in the set of Blue. They're like, "NYPD Blue, when you know that?" He's like, "No, Pacific Blue." You know, it's
Pacific
like,
Blue.
he's always telling you, you know, "I did 3 days on this when I did my movie of the week," and he's comparing it to this film that Vince is in that's winning the Palme d'Or at Cannes on. And it's like movie of the week versus Cannes, very different, John. You know, but when Johnny doesn't give a
But
shit,
it's funny
starts,
how Vince never cares. Like, he
yeah,
never
Vince never
bothers him.
cares.
He never gets upset or offended by his brother's stories. You know?
Yeah, and it's only when he doesn't listen to Ari, and Ari's like, "Bro, this is still a career. You have to take it seriously." And he does have some stupid things happen to him because people are trying to tell him, "You're playing it a little too loose." And he's like, "I got to grow up. I got to read some scripts." And they all have that. It's like it's like the fifth or sixth season where like even Turtle's like, "Yo, I like Drama's got a show. Vince has got his career back. He's got a bunch of clients now. I don't have shit." You know, and he really wants to like start something, and he grows up too. You know, it's inevitable, guys, but this is why these things happen to you because you can't stay still in life. Things are either going to get really good or get shitty. There's no staying in the same place, you know? And everybody that's
Yeah.
older is going to tell you, yeah, life either got better or worse, you know? And it's up to you which way it goes, you know? But all of this is happening so that you can get close to God and learn to believe in yourself and learn to believe in God because you are God and He is you, you know? And change your life, fix anything. You know, we all love an underdog story. So another great show I'm watching is Chad Powers. I don't know if I think I
Oh, I
told you to
haven't looked
watch it.
into that yet.
Oh my
I'll
God, it's
talk
so
about
good.
that some other time. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
so
looked into
good.
that.
Yeah, but so all right,
Yeah, I want to come with
let's get the
I was
Bible
just thinking
story
about
now.
a couple Neville things, and then
I
so I
apologize.
think
I'm rusty, so I'm trying to like. I feel like I got to get everything crammed into this thing. So I'm sorry, guys. I don't mean to do that. I know I keep jumping in and talking about all this other stuff. I've seen all this stuff recently with clients, and
mhm.
when this clicks, they turn a corner and they're off. They're off and running. You know, and I want that for everybody else too. We've had some really good success with people that I haven't even worked with that I've just had a quick little talk with, and or they've read a post or something, or they heard a success story, and it clicks. And so I'm trying to make sure I can do everything I can to make it finally click for those of you it hasn't clicked with yet. You know, so I apologize, but it's done out of love.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking like another because I think your point here is we're what help people with these challenges, you know, um, and when people are struggling about imposing and the bad thoughts and all that, and so one thing I think too is to remember is the good Neville Goddard principle is like signs always follow, they never precede. And
Yeah.
so we're talking about here is the persistency and the assumption of the wish fulfilled. And so that's like, you got to remember like the signs are going to follow your persistency, and then you'll start to notice them. And sometimes those signs were there the whole time. You just never saw them. And sometimes they really weren't there, but then they show up. And it doesn't really matter which one it is. And so I think that's like important to keep in mind. And then there's like classic, Bible quotes like faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, and also, and that's kind of another way of putting, the signs always follow. they never proceed. And then also,
Yeah,
God.
because they can't. It means it's literally telling you that without belief, you're not going to get anything. But with belief, you'll
Mhm.
start to see that you are headed in the right direction.
Exactly. And, God calls those things which are not as though they were. So from Romans 4:17. So those are good quotes. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about those sort of Neville principles relating here. So it's really is all those things about persisting in the assumption, and
Yeah.
and so you got to shift focus. So now I guess we'll I'll try to come up with a
Well, one quick
example.
thing before we do this,
Yes, yeah,
I want to talk about Bridge of Incidents
go for it.
because
Yes,
it's
let's do
driving
that.
me
Yeah, people were
crazy
talking
that
about that earlier. Yeah.
people keep saying, I think my Bridge of Incidents started. Guys, you're never going to know. Just because you think it starts also doesn't mean that that leads to the end result that you want. You know, your bridge, you're never going to know until you're done. And then you can look back and see it. It's not a thing that starts and then that means you're definitely getting your manifestation, because if you stop believing halfway through, it all falls apart anyway. Like somebody was saying the other day, I saw on a post, I was in the Sabbath and then I kept getting attacked. I'm like, you were never in the Sabbath. If you were in the Sabbath, no matter what happened, you wouldn't have gotten wishy-washy. You wouldn't have wavered. It would have been done. You know, when you
Yeah, think
start
about
thinking of
Jesus in
that,
the storm, right? Jesus is
yeah,
just sitting there sleeping, and everyone's freaking out around him, and they have to go wake him up. But because Jesus was at rest, he wasn't worried about it. He knew what was up. But yeah, so that's a perfect example.
yeah. So stop worrying about this bridge of incidents. You're not going to know when it happens. It's not something that starts the path. You're on the path the moment you decide to start this journey. And guys, don't start it unless you're ready, because once you start it, there's no going back. You can't put it all back in the box and unlearn it. And that's why so many people now are dealing with the I hate Neville, Neville ruined my life bullshit. And they're never going to admit it because they don't see it, but it's because they quit it. They never really took full accountability and they're looking for someone to blame again, you know? And I know that sucks to hear. And I pray for all of them that they see that. And, you know, if they want to hate me for it, I'll just forgive them. But everything really is in your control. It's designed to give you complete and total control of your life. And I was a perfectionist and a control freak. And like most, I actually, when I realized that, didn't like that. I was like, shit, that means everything's my fault and I'm responsible for everything, you know? And Anders was a great accountability partner because he would remind me of that. He would remind me when I wavered. Well, all I hear is somebody arguing with her again. All I hear is somebody arguing with themselves again, arguing with God again. And I would get so frustrated with it. So I know you want to strangle the person, but they're dead right. You know, they really are telling you, like, you're wavering. You can't do that. You can't believe you have something while talking about how you don't have it. You can't be wanting it if you believe you have it. That's why I say work on your belief, not trying to get it. Because trying to get it, you're implying you don't have it. Working on your belief, all you're doing is just changing a belief. You're just wanting to believe a new story and then let it reflect. There's no pressure in that situation at all, you know? So, okay, rant over. Let's go ahead and get into this because this is a great story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then that's it's funny too because you just remind me of one thing. Oh, I mentioned. Oh, that's right. Yeah, and then with the whole Bridget incidents thing, one way to look at it, which might help is go look at the stories and then think about this. Like, okay, are you willing to get what you want, but are you willing to let it happen God's way, or does it have to happen your way and you get
Yeah.
what you want? Because if it's going to be that, things probably aren't going to work out the way you expect. But
Yeah,
if
I
you
learned a long
allow
time
things to
ago, let
happen,
God
is it
do it
God's
because
way?
it's better too. It's always better
Exactly.
God's way. It's easier. You get more than what you asked for. It's like you finally go, oh shit, I should have surrendered a long time ago. Here, man, take the wheel. Like that song, Jesus, take the wheel. You know?
Yeah,
So
exactly. Okay, so let's yeah, I guess we're getting late. We need to wrap up, but I'm going to
yeah.
tell this story, and hopefully it'll be helpful. So if you go into Judges 4, some of you may remember this. There's the Judge Deborah, and she has to stand in the gap and take charge. And so she goes ahead and she basically starts dealing with all the people who were all the invaders. But there's a specific story where they're dealing with this guy Sisera, and Sisera is like a raider. He has all these iron chariots, and he's just coming in and plundering. And so Deborah goes and gets Israel to fight against him, and all his men are killed, etc. So Sisera, this bad guy, very big tough guy, and so he's fleeing well by himself. He's a refugee now, and so the story says Acts 4:17. Now Sisera fled on foot to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, because there was peace between Jabin, the king of Hazor, and the house of Heber the Kenite. So he's going someplace where he thought there was peace. And Jael went out to meet Sisera and said to him, "Turn aside, my master, turn aside to me. Do not be afraid." So he turned aside to her into the tent, and she covered him with a rug. And he said to her, "Please give me a little water to drink, for I am thirsty." So she opened a leather bottle of milk and gave him a drink. Then she covered him. And he said to her, "Stand in the doorway of the tent, and it shall be, if anyone comes and inquires of you and says, 'Is anyone there?' that you shall say no." So yeah, so basically he wants to hide in the tent. So, but Jael, Heber's wife, took a tent peg and a hammer in her hand and went secretly to him and drove the peg into his temple, and it went through into the ground, for he was sound asleep and exhausted. So he died. And behold, while Barak was pursuing Sisera, Jael came out to meet him and said to him, "Come, and I will show you the man you are seeking." So he entered with her, and behold, Sisera was lying dead with the tent peg in his temple. So I think this is an interesting illustrative story, and I think it's way you can take this is what you can do with the obtrusive thoughts or the bad thoughts or the unhelpful thoughts which are out there, the bandits which are coming out and raiding your countryside and are just not helpful. They're kind of demonic forces, however you want to look at it. And, they want to hide out. They're on the run and come into the tent, and you don't just let them. It's like, okay, are you letting all these thoughts just camp out there, hang out? Or are they making them your friend and being like your companion? You're complaining to them, commiserating with them, but they're not your friend. And, just what do? Well, you take out the tent peg and you nail that tent peg through their temple and
be done with
that's
it.
That. Yeah. And you don't have to deal with it. And then, here's another question then. Okay. So how might we do this? Well, one thing I was reminded of, was, you can, declare the things you're believing on, the things you're, go and out and persist in that belief, go live in that end of where you are. But then I was also reminded of Luke 4, where Jesus is tempted in the wilderness. And so what he does is the devil kind of says different things to him and even quotes some scripture. And so what Jesus does is he, says what God has said about the situation. And it's interesting too, because then I went back and read, and it turns out Jesus is actually quoting stuff from earlier. And he's actually quoting stuff from earlier when Israel itself was in the wilderness and between Egypt and coming into the promised land with Joshua. So Jesus is in the wilderness, and he quotes back what Israel, I guess, should have been saying and doing when they were in the wilderness to the devil. And those are kind of, in my opinion, kind of tent pegs to take that word and declare it and believe it and mean it, and just really stand firm and say, "Yep, this is what I'm saying." You might be saying one thing. You might be trying to point out these circumstances, point out these fears, etc. But what I'm saying is, things do work out. God works for you. I mean, what are some of your ones? I mean, what are some of your favorite ones in your bulldog ant?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the story of the cross really is what this is all about too, because Jesus had to shed the flesh, get rid of the old him, literally die. He was afraid of the death, but he knew that if he kept his focus on God, that the reward was, everlasting life and everything manifesting and saving everyone and being,
Yes, and saving everyone, especially.
And that meant more to him than the fear. And I mean, I can't even imagine, like, when I watched The Chosen, and they really did a good job with the garden, where he is like begging, is there any way? And God shows him scenes of like Abraham, right? And he's like taking his son up. He knows what he has to do. And he's trusting God that he's not going to make him kill his son. And, all these things. And I know it's so weird because in the Bible, God seems like this weird God, but you have to trust in him because he has a way of teaching you lessons. And just because you don't understand it at first, you will when you go through it and listen, the lesson becomes very clear and it fixes a lot of things for you. And it makes you see that, you did have this bad story about him. So you would think he would make you take your son up to the mountaintop and kill him. But if you really believed him, you would know he was never going to make you do that, and Abraham proved that it was Abraham, right? But Jesus sees all these people who were faced with a very crazy like task that could destroy them. And they trusted God versus looking at the circumstance, trusted that he had a plan here and that it was going to work out better than they could imagine. And then they got rewarded with it. And that's what you guys have to always remember. That's why I tell you guys, read the Bible too, because the Bible tells you constantly that God doesn't leave you. Constantly that when things come up, give it to him. The only reason they're coming up is so that you could give it to him so he can show you over and over again that he is always Willis or the Fonz behind you telling the gooch, that's it. Touch my boy and you're dead, and that you are never in any danger. And I know that's so hard to believe, especially for a lot of you guys that had it a lot tougher growing up than I did and dealt with a lot of pain. But God's telling you, I've been here with you. It's time for you to see it now and for you to go shine. Because God doesn't want the people who are already perfect. Jesus even says that. Yep. He wants the lost sheep. This is how he shows the world he can do anything. I like for our show, when we were bringing it to networks, our log line was even a shithead does good sometimes. And we stressed the importance of showing the world that shitheads can do good and it makes a bigger impact. And that God is looking for the shitheads because they'll make a bigger impact. The guy who's always the hero in the story is usually the reluctant one. And that's why we love that story so much. You think Luke Skywalker wants to find out his dad is the most evil person in the galaxy and he's got powers and, he's got to struggle with all this and he struggles with it, and, but he doesn't, he's like, fuck, can't I just be like a starfighter or whatever and kill some people and yay, instead of all this other shit, the Vince Papali story too. I thought that was a great one where everybody's telling him, you suck, you're a bartender, you don't deserve to make it. And he makes it, And so we love those stories, but the reason we love them is because there's a part of us that knows we can be that too and wants to be, but you have to do what they did and you have to believe. When the odds are not in your favor, when it looks like it's not going to work out, when everybody's spitting at you, laughing at you, you put your focus on God, not Goliath, and you will come out victorious.
Love it.
So, yeah. So that's what you guys have to remember. And that's why you're going through this, because God is showing you it doesn't matter what you face. The circumstances don't fucking matter. Focus on the new story. Focus on the new you. Shed the flesh. Die on the cross. Forgive everybody. And then you get a new life, everlasting. So, that's why we say you get what you believe. So focus on what you believe and let the rest of the shit go. Jesus truly believed that while he was going to suffer, it was going to lead to saving all of us. And he loved us so much, he was willing to do that. Same with God. He gave up his only son, and he knew it was going to lead to something greater than he could ever have here on earth. And you have to remember that too. God's preparing you for that.
Oh, and God did it. I mean, Jesus did it for himself, but for God the Father, but he also did it because of the future glory and having and God wanted us to be his family. That's really why it was, and that was the way to reconcile everything and to shatter the power of these dark forces, which were trying to tell everyone that God didn't love them.
But guys, if you feel like you're a fuck up right now, a screw up, you can't get anything right, you lost your girl, your guy, you lost your job, whatever, you got to say, okay, fine. That's the old me. That guy is dead. That girl is gone. That woman no longer exists. This is who I am now. And you keep telling that story and it will harden into fact. And what's funny is the doubters are going to be the first people to show up and be your signs to be like, hey, you've changed. I remember I was believing I was changing, but then people were coming up to me and like, hey, you've changed. My dad even said to me, you're a better dad than I am, I think. He's like, I would go on deployment. I would miss you guys, but I was like, hey, it's part of, he's like, you can't stand being apart from your kid for a minute. You want to be there for everything and be such a great dad for her, you know? And he's like, you're there for everything. You don't miss anything, no matter what, no matter how much it costs you, no matter, what it takes to do it. You just get it done now. And that's a good dad. And you're going to be successful being like that too, because when you love something, you put your all into it and your belief into it. Belief is believing when there is absolutely no proof. I love now when people tell me something's impossible. I'm like, fuck that. Hold my beer. I'll be right back. That's how you guys have to be. Difficult takes a day, impossible takes a week. That's what Jay-Z said, So, I mean, everybody who makes it, we all say the same thing because it's the truth, and you just got to surrender and believe. And you're always caught. When you take that leap of faith, you don't fall, you don't almost hit the ground, you don't bounce off of it and survive with the broken, and you got to heal. No, you get caught by the softest, most gentlest, cushiony clouds, whatever hands, and it's amazing. You realize there was nothing to be afraid of. And yeah, you're a fuck up today, but you're a hero tomorrow. Before I met my wife, I got sick of it, and I made this video to myself. I was out of shape. I was like, my life was a mess, and I was like, I want to remember that I was this big of a fuck up, but tomorrow when I wake up, this guy's gone, and every day I get better and better and better. And I started to change things about my life. It made me believe in myself more. And then I met her, and she believed in me, and then I screwed it all up again because I stopped doing the fucking work. I stopped believing. I started telling bad stories again. That's why he says it's a lifestyle. That's why we say to you, you get what you believe. So watch what you believe. Watch your mental diet, what you say, what you watch, what you read. So many things that are out there are designed to cause drama. Television, It's to cause drama. Leave that shit alone. When you're good, you can watch it. It won't affect you at all. I watch Love Island, all these things my wife likes, all that stuff, the family when we go to places and stuff, and it doesn't affect me. In fact, I'm always like, well, this is what's going to happen. She's telling you exactly where her story's going to go. She said, I hope a blonde girl doesn't come in. Watch, a blonde with big boobs is coming in, and Jack's going to like her and not him. And that's exactly what happens. And some of it is because the producer's like, let's cause the drama. And some of it is them manifesting, showing you, I was so afraid of this. Holy shit, look, it showed up instantly. Really pay attention to this stuff. You get what you believe. Stop trying to get something, because if you're trying to get what you want, you're admitting, I don't have it. But if you're just changing a belief, there's no pressure, and you're putting yourself in the right direction, which is, I have it. You're believing you have it more and more. Trying to get something, you're trying to fight with the fact that you don't have it and you need to get it. Changing your belief is just like, nope, every day I'm going to believe more and more. It's already done. I already got it. And you're not fighting against anything. It's way easier that way. Neville tells you that too. You're not going, no, 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 love me. What's happening is you're saying, I am loved, and you're really believing it, and everybody becomes a reflection of that. But that's why I tell you, watch your stories, because if you're saying I am loved and everybody in your world is showing up, but your SP, but your mom, but your dad, say, do I have a story about them? And 10 out of 10 times you do.
Yeah.
And then when you believe, you go, well, look, all these other people love me and this person hated me. Like, look at Jack, right? He thought that old lady hated him. Once he changed his mind about her, she changed. And he's like, well, fuck, if I can make that old nasty lady like me, why the hell can't I get my girlfriend who, loves me and I have this history with? And if you're seeing it happen with people you have no connection with, imagine how much faster it'll happen with the person you do have a connection with. You guys got to start looking at it from a different point of view. And you got to say, when you're thinking things, is this serving me or is this hurting me? Because if it's hurting me, I'm done with it. I'm really done with it. And if you're not done with it, then you're not ready to take the journey, and you need to be honest with yourself about that. People hire me and I want to make sure they're in a good headspace and they're not going to put themselves in debt paying people. Like, so I won't take them if they really can't afford it, and they're really, like, I'll be honest with them. I'll be like, listen, I know you think you're ready. I know you want to be ready, but look at how you're talking about them and look at how you're breaking down. You're not emotionally there yet. You need to go fix you first. You need to go fix your finances. What good is it getting the girl or the guy if you don't have any money to get married or do anything with either? Like, fix you first. All the things that when they broke up with you, you're like, I knew it. This is wrong with me. That's wrong with me. Go and fix all that stuff. And then you won't ever worry about being dumped again. I'm telling you. If I ever became single again, I would never worry about being dumped because I didn't have any money. Because I know I'm the man with that. Like I'm a good provider. I'm an excellent provider because I said to myself, I'm an excellent provider. But when I started saying that, I was not an excellent provider. I didn't have any money. I was living off of credit cards. But then I said, hey, look at this. I've had shitty credit my whole life, but somehow when all this starts, I had a ray of hope. I suddenly had great credit because my wife paid off all the credit cards and it fixed my credit. And I was suddenly able to get all these credit cards. But then I was being stupid and living off of credit cards. And I was like, I'm fucking up again. And then, so I started manifesting money. And I also believed God was not going to like make me have to leave. I was like, he's not that cruel. So God showed up. Well, I'm not that cruel. But I really believe that statement when I said that. And that's what you guys have to focus on is what the fuck do you believe? Who gives a shit about the circumstance? And say, it's only here because I believed it. So if I stop believing in it, I get rid of it. It's the same thing with third parties. You don't ever ask any questions or worry about them and they disappear. And if you don't believe that, think about how many friends that you forgot about for a while. And you're like, whatever happened to Jude? Remember Jude with us? We're like, whatever happened to Jude? And Jude was gone. And then because I started talking about him, he showed up. He's like, hey man, can I borrow $100? Because I was like, he'll show up if he needs money. And sure enough, he was like, I need money. Can I borrow $100? And then he disappeared again. But like when I stopped thinking about him, he was nowhere to be found. Like I couldn't even see anything on his socials or anything. But when we brought him up, he would show up and be like, can I borrow some money? I have another friend like that. I'm like, oh, he's calling. He needs money. And they're always like, well, you got a bunch of it. Help me. I've had people on Reddit be like, well, if you can manifest so easily, why don't you just give me 10 grand? I'm like, okay, but you're going to go through it in no time anyway. But also like, why? You can do it. You believe in yourself. I chose to. If you don't get the 10 grand, it doesn't hurt me. I wish you the best, but it doesn't mean you get to come take all my money. Like believe too, and you won't have to worry about it yourself, So you guys got to really watch what you believe. It's super important. And that statement is the key to all of this. Stop trying to get what you want and desire because it's saying you don't have it. Focus on changing your belief. It's a mirror. The whole world is a fucking mirror. And it might take a little while, but if you persist and you're disciplined, you'll start to believe you deserve it. You'll start to see signs. You'll start to believe more. And like he says, eventually it hardens into fact. Same thing happened to him with the army. Same thing happened to me with my glasses. Same thing happened to me with there's so many stories. Same thing happened to me when I finally got the free coffee. I had said, fuck it. I don't need free coffee. And I was just like, I'm just going to change my story and tell myself I get free coffee all the time and not worry about if I get it. Because every morning I was looking for it. And that girl's like, hey, you're doing free coffee. And she shows me the Neville book. That was God saying, hey, see, signs follow. They don't proceed. You believed, you got your coffee. Now this girl's telling you in case you're doubting, because I know you, as soon as you get what you want, you start doubting again. No, dumbass, this was the Neville book. This was me. It couldn't be any fucking clearer. Here's the complete reader. So go finally read it, stupid. God's trying to tell you the answer. Oh, what was the one Bible quote that I said, make sure we say it because it talks about how he puts you on the right path. Because I wanted to tell everybody, ask God and he will show you the right path.
Oh, yeah. No, I think I know what you're talking about. Yes, sir. Okay. I hope this is it's Proverbs 3, 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. That's what you had in mind, right? Yeah. So that's totally relates to the bridge of incidents we're talking about.
So trust in him. Ask him, how do I make myself get there? And the last thing I did want to kind of touch on is self-concept. Okay. So many people think self-concept is like, I go to the gym, I drink enough water, I'm taking. No, self-concept is, do you believe you can do this? Do you believe you are the source? Do you believe you can manifest? That's the self-concept we're talking about getting. That's how you work on self-concept. Working on the fact that you do believe that this is possible, that you can do it, that you are the source, you are the creator of your world, and that you manifest everything. That's how you work on self-concept. Because when you really believe that about yourself, you have all the confidence in the world and you don't worry about anything. And again, you're not having to change bad beliefs because your beliefs are just like, I have no problems. Whenever somebody tells me, I finally realize there is nothing to worry about. Life is good and God always protects me. Even when stuff does come up, I'm like, boom, there is your breakthrough. Now you're on your way. When they finally really understand that changing the belief, working on the belief is easier than trying to get something, they take off like a rocket. When they really understand what you get what you believe, not what you want means, they're as good as done. So if there really was a way to know, a bridge like you're looking for, that would be it. But you got to really know and you got to really believe. Stop focusing on lack, even accidentally. I know it's hard. It's overwhelming sometimes. So ask God, point me in the right direction. Show me the path of least resistance. Take all my anxiety, stress, and depression away. Watch how the next morning you wake up and you're like, fuck, I'm not worried about anything. But do that every night when you go to bed and watch how you keep waking up that way. And if you don't, say, God, hey, we had a deal. Come take it away. And he will. You know, that's the secret to this, guys. You get what you believe. Work on your beliefs about you, about God, about love, about money, about whatever. Because you do have a bad story. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in this position. And God is trying to show you that leaning on him shows you the right way to look at it. He points you down the right path and you get everything you want. And you don't have anything to worry about. And you have a choice, live a wonderful life or a shitty life. You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Is there something you wanted to wrap up with, Anders?
No, no, this is good.
Yeah.
Why don't you wrap it up with whatever's
Yeah, I
also on
just
your heart?
really
And this
felt
thing
in my
is good.
heart to get this out there because I've had a couple clients recently say this and then they like took off. It was like done. So I want you guys to, because I know it's hard and you're always wondering when and how. You got to just be like, it's already done. There is no when and all that. I already know how. It just fucking worked out. It was God. God is the how. So that's good. I got that answer. The when I fucking believe. So I'll believe and I'll get it, and I'm focusing on changing my belief. And everybody says my story. No, your belief. What do you believe? Because what you believe will lead to the thoughts you have that lead to the stories you tell, which lead to what manifests in your world. And it never stops. So always be careful with what you believe and say. And people have tried to tell us that throughout the history of the world. If you knew how powerful your words were and your beliefs were, you would be very careful about what you think and say and do, you know?
Yeah.
And you don't have to do anything. So stop going, well, it was inspired action to call him. No, it wasn't. But go ahead, call him too, because what you're going to learn is exactly what he really thinks. So he'll be like, I don't love you. I don't want to be with you. It's not a bad thing. Now you know what to go work on. I believe he doesn't love me and he doesn't want to be with me. Great. He told me that. Who gives a shit now? Forget it. It stung for a minute, but it's actually a great thing because he just told me exactly what beliefs I need to change. I had one client where the guy just wouldn't change. And I was like, look, you're going to have to call her because you won't. I keep saying, asking these questions, you never have answers to them. She'll have the answers. So try to get back together with her. And he did. And she's like, this. And he was like, it all made a lot of sense. And I was like, and it's also the answer to the questions I've been asking you. So now we know what to change. And he changed it. And boom, she was back.
Nice.
I know it's tough, but you persist and lean on God. He will show up for you. Anders, you can testify to that too. You've been in situations where you needed things and it looked a little bad and you trusted, and then not only did you get it, but you got it in a really big way, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And you got to just keep that belief, keep that faith. Because that's all it is. It's when there's no proof of it, that's what belief in faith is trusting that it's just going to find a way. That's how everybody that accomplished something miraculous or huge in your mind, it wasn't a big deal to them because they were like, I don't know what to tell you. I just knew God was going to come through for me. It wasn't a real worry for him. I wish they showed that part in the movie a little bit more, but it's boring because the guy's like, nope, I'm just going to sit back here. I'm going to go take a nap now because I'm finally done worrying about shit and I can finally get a good night's sleep. That's what really actually happens to you. It's not like, woohoo, I got it on. You're the Karate Kid. You're the best around. None of that shit. It's just like, oh man, I just want to take a really long nap today because I finally feel good and calm. I feel like I have it now. And when I had it, I was taking naps, right? So I wasn't worried about it. And that I remember when shit, I remember that too. I was like, before I met my wife, I was always in debt and creditors or getting kicked out of it. And I was like, wow. I remembered when I got married, I was like, I never have to worry about that again. And then she left, and I was like, now I got to worry about all that again. But right before she left, I was wondering what it would be like to live in that my place alone, what it would be like if I had to do it all on my own, raise my daughter on my own, all that stuff. And then I got that because I was like wondering, focusing on it, and it showed up. And you used to tell me all the time, stop saying divorce or you're going to get divorced. Don't use that word. You know, hindsight's 2020. This could have all been fixed, but I think I went through it all because then I could come teach you guys, and you could be like, well, that guy's situation was absolute shit. And all I did was piss my mother-in-law off, or piss my girlfriend's mother off, or, my boyfriend's father hates me or whatever. And you're like, not so bad compared to that, you know? But I knew now that God realized how strong I was, and it wasn't insulting that all that stuff was happening to me. He's like, we're going to make a shithead be good. And he's going to be an example to the world that shitheads can do good. What better choice than the biggest shithead of all, you know? And I know I'm not the biggest shithead of all, but I mean, I was definitely in the running. I was trying to make a case for it. So, you know, but if you are, stop and then believe in yourself. Trust that God will help you out. I know I keep saying it over and over again, but it needs to be beat into your head. You got to beat it in your head when Anders and I are not here telling you this, when I'm not making posts. You've got to remind yourself of this. And that's where the reading comes in, because it reminds you constantly. It gives you the relief from the stress and the anxiety. The Bible especially is such a comforting book, but you have to
Absolutely.
put your time into it. You have to persist. You have to show. You're not showing God. God already knows what's in your heart. You're kind of showing yourself. The only person testing you is you. So stop. Be like, well, I wouldn't be going through this if God didn't believe I could do it. Because you wouldn't be. He says in the Bible, I will give you
Yeah,
no more
it's
than you
true.
can handle. So if you're in it, it's because he knows you can come through. So you got to believe that. You got to test and push yourself. And that's how you become the new you. You kill the old you, and you don't do any of the stuff the old you did. You do a 180. That worked even with remember I told you the marriage busting guy I went to? He was like, literally one of the techniques was
Hmm.
called a 180. So you do the opposite of what you always do with your spouse. If you come home and watch a TV show with her and you don't do any of that, you go in the
Hmm.
room, you separate yourself. And then what happens is they come to you and go, hey, we normally do this. Hey, what's going on? Hey, I kind of miss you. You do the 180, you let them miss you too. God has a funny way of showing them they miss you. Sometimes too, giving them exactly what they want shows them they don't want that.
It's
But none of
true.
that shit matters anyway, because it's all God doing that. God will show them you miss them. But if you keep fucking up the plan and showing up going, I miss you, then they don't have time to miss you. They don't worry. They know. And I know with men, if we know, ladies, we got you on the hook, that's why I say don't answer the call until they leave you the voicemail or text saying, I love you. I want to get back together with you. Because a lot of times I'm checking in to see if I've lost you or not. And I need to start putting more attention to you, or I'm still good and I can go out and do the bullshit. And again, none of that stuff matters. It's just what you believe, but leave them the fuck alone and just trust that they're going to show up saying everything you want to hear. And then that's what will happen. Hear them say it to you, you know, and,
Yeah,
you
focus on
know,
that. Focus on hearing him say it and living in that end, not oh, where is it? Why haven't they called? Blah blah blah. Just
one of the things I just kept playing in my head is how
hmm.
she would say, I love you to me over and over again in her voice. The other thing is sometimes I would get sad if I tried to picture intimate moments where I would try to picture her being loving with me. I would get a little sad. So then I would kind of use I don't call it the O method, but I would think about her like having sex. And I'd be like, I can't really get mad at her when she's naked, in my dream, and I'm kind of like hitting it. Like I suddenly wasn't mad, and I felt like a connection to her, and I just felt like, I don't know. It's a weird little trick. I'm just throwing it out there for you guys. It's really hard to stay mad at your person when you're thinking about them in a ooh la la way versus like, oh, I love you, and you're like, oh, they would never say this to me. So
Well, I heard
sex, you
something.
can hate fuck each other, it's still
I heard something funny the other day. We should wrap this up. But I heard
yeah.
something funny the other day, which was um you can't be angry with someone if you have like your like hands up and like raised, but like up above your head, like if they're like praying or whatever, like or like thanking God or whatever.
Yeah.
And you can't actually do it. Like if you're sort of like it just doesn't feel right if you like actually have them like raised up. Not like you're attacking someone, but just like um and you're just like
You're surrendering.
you're in this totally different like mode and it doesn't feel right. I mean you could say, yeah, thank you, Lord, like or Lord, you gotta help us out here, like you know what I mean? Or but you can't
Yeah.
like be angry at the person. And I was like, oh man, I'm gonna try that
Well, it's like
out.
they tell you to smile even when it's bad because it's really hard to keep thinking the bad thoughts when you're smiling. And it takes more
Right.
effort to smile than it does to frown. So you have to literally put the effort into it. And then you're like, why am I upset? I'm smiling. I don't know. It's these little tricks that you can do to trick your brain. But
Yeah,
figure out what
exactly.
your tricks are and figure out, say to yourself, what made me change my mind about something in the past? What made me believe in the things I believe? And then you got to believe it like you believe the
Mm,
sky is blue. And you're not done until you believe it like the sky is blue. But 9 times out of 10, you never have to get there because what finally helps you get that last bit of belief is they end up showing up, or the money shows up, or the desire shows up. And that finishes it, and then you never have to worry about it again if you keep practicing it. It's a
yep.
lifestyle, guys. And you got to study. Vegans don't become a vegan tomorrow. Wake up and go, I'm vegan now. They have to study. What the fuck do I eat? How do I get my protein? Right? How do I eat vegan? Can I eat this? Can I eat that? What can I have? What can I have? They have to go study it. So go study it. Then they try being vegan. That's why they're so fucking proud of themselves. And they always wear t-shirts that say, I'm a vegan, you know, because they're like, I
It's a
put
big
some work
commitment.
into this. I'm proud of this. Yeah. It's a big commitment. Same thing with athletes. When they train and work hard, they're always like, I want to show what a badass I am on the field. Right? They're telling everybody as they're walking on the field, I'm going to mess everybody up. You know, you work hard, you believe in yourself. And a lot of you guys do this thing where you work hard a little bit here and there and you don't ever finish it. You start one affirmation, you don't finish it, and you start another. So you're putting all this work in, but you never finish anything. So it feels like you've done a ton of work, but you're not accomplishing anything. Stop doing that. Figure out where it works better, one thing at a time or spreading it out so you don't feel any pressure. That might work better for you. Some people need to focus on one thing. Some people, it's better for them to not focus on too much and go work on something else. But again, finish it. Do the same amount of work you did for the
Yeah.
first affirmation with the second one and the third one. Work on all three things equally as hard until you believe. Don't be like, well, I'm tired of saying this. I'm going to go jump on that. Be like, no, I'm tired of saying it, so I need to say it more.
Yeah, we
I'm
also gotta
telling
get
you,
you also gotta get tired of saying the bad stuff. That's the other thing. I
yeah.
get tired of
And
that.
and you'll know when you're done because the other voice not only stops fighting you, but is like, fuck yeah, hell yeah, it's your hype man. I am an amazing provider. Hell yeah, you are. Look at all the stuff you buy for that kid. You're paying for private school. Look at this. Look, you got that kid in the best sneaker. Like that kid doesn't go without anything, but you're not spoiling her either because you're an awesome dad. And that's your next affirmation. I'm an awesome dad. Yeah, you are. That kid is well adjusted, emotionally mature for her age. And it's agreeing with you. But if you're not hearing that voice, you're not there. If you're hearing the other voice, you're definitely not there. Get real with yourself. A lot of you guys are doing work in a bullshit way, and you know it deep down. So get serious with it. So many of you say, I tried my hardest, and I ask one or two questions like, well, no, I didn't really do that. No, I didn't try that. Oh, no, okay. I see where you're going with this. Why are you judging me? Like people will write me and I'll talk
That's
to them.
always a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, they're always
Why
like,
are you
you're
judging
judging me. You
me?
don't even know me and you're judging me. I'm like, I don't know you. Bitch, I was you. I was you. I know exactly. I'll tell you everything you're thinking, you've ever thought. I know. I was you. I can smell my own. You can't lie to a bullshitter because they know it. You can't bullshit a bullshitter. The one thing I know is how to fuck up and what we do when we fuck up.
I
So
mean,
you
there's
tell
something to
me
be
I
said
don't
about
know
that
you.
too. Like, hey, start keeping a journal. Like, okay, yeah, what exactly have you done every day? Keep,
Yeah.
keep a
But
journal. Like, and if your journal is empty, well, that's a sign. And then if it's
yeah.
not empty, then go take a look at it. See what
Well,
it
that's
tells
why
you about
that
what you're
list
doing.
is important because on the days you struggle,
Exactly.
that's your memory stone. That's why I
Hmm.
started doing that because you told me keep a memory stone for everything, all the
Yep.
good things. That
Memorials.
list was like, holy shit, look at all these things I've manifested. And I'm sitting here
Wow.
thinking I can't get one chick. People are like telling me I changed the sky. It was supposed to rain. It didn't rain. It was supposed to be snowy and it was sunny and warm. I'm like, so you can change the weather of the entire fucking planet, or at least your state or area, but you can't get one person to say I love you? That's crazy. That's crazy. I know, because I was saying the same thing. You just got to believe. You got to trust. All right, guys. So this was on my heart. Anders, thank you so much for jumping on with me again.
Yeah, it's great.
And we're going to try to, some of these are going to start being repetitive because I think we've said pretty much everything we can say about manifestation. So maybe now is where we start repeating stuff so it starts beating it in your head. Maybe a lot of you guys just like listening to this on your way home, so we'll make them for that. But help us out too. Like if we give instructions on what to do for stuff, please just do it to help us out. I know a lot of you guys don't mean it, so but we're gonna really try. It's just hard. We got our lives too, wives and all that stuff going on, and sports and everything, or activities, businesses, all that stuff. So it does get hard, but we're gonna do our best to start bringing you more episodes again, and hopefully you guys enjoy them. And once again, I intend for everybody that was looking for an answer to get that answer tonight with this podcast. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So once again, guys, great seeing you. Great being back. We love you. We wish nothing but the best for you, but you got to wish for the best for yourself too. Help us help you, and
Absolutely.
any of you who are not on the subreddit, usually at least once a week, I do a group intention where I intend with all of you guys, because in the Bible it says where two or more come together, God is there. So if you're ever worried God isn't hearing your prayers, God's not there when you're asking, you'll know for a fact because I'll be intending with you, and God doesn't lie. If he tells you he's there where two or more are together, then I'm doing that just so that you have that peace of mind that God was definitely there. And I'm pretty good at this shit. So if I intend for you too, chances are you're going to get it as long as you don't fuck it up with some bullshit beliefs. We've had a lot of great success stories. People showing up going, hey, money showed up. My music started sounding like all kinds of great stuff. So come check it out. It's the same spelling as on Reddit as it is on the podcast. And join, like, subscribe. The one thing I'm glad about with Reddit is they took away where it tells you how many subscribers you have, because I hated that. I don't really care. But, come contribute, follow the rules, join those group intentions. They're really making a difference. Get involved, like, subscribe to this, help us get this channel out there to other people, share it with everybody like help us, and that helps you too, So if you want something given, give something first. That's what we're doing. We're giving you stuff first, and that's why good things keep coming to us. So again, guys, we love you. Sorry for all the rambling. I'm a little rusty, but we will talk to you guys in the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been great. I'm really happy we got to talk and look forward to doing another one. And hey, if you guys have some helpful things in terms of, hey, maybe there's some like Neville stories or books or things you want us to unpack or talk about, sort of parts of books or lectures, put them in the comments, or Bible parts you'd like us to unpack or talk about on the show. Please throw out suggestions. And yeah, we love you guys, and we are intending the best for all of you, and hope this landed. And if it didn't, ask for wisdom.
and with the suggestions, ask yourself too: is this a simple question, or am I asking them to expand on everything? Like if you're asking us like what happens after death and this and that, like that's going to be a little much. If you're like basically saying how do I do this, that's a really big topic. It requires the guy wrote tons of books on it. We've
Yeah, I
done
think
tons
it's
of
more a suggestion of if
like
there's
a
a specific
quote
thing
or
where you're
something.
like, hey,
Yeah.
this was like a really cool thing. This was a really cool thing. I've listened to the show. You would love to hear your guys like kind of talking about it or expanding on it or unpacking it for us. And, just sort of, it seems like it'd be a cool topic. Like, topic
Yeah.
suggestions would be fun. Not saying, we're we're kind of moved by just kind of where things are going, but we'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on
Yeah.
interesting topics, and
Just
Yeah.
make sure it's a Neville question and not like,
Yes.
should I break up with my boyfriend or not?
Yes,
Like, it's not our
exactly.
place to tell you that, you know?
Exactly. Definitely,
You
definitely.
shouldn't be asking strangers because you're going to get a lot of broken-hearted people be like, fuck yeah, dump that dude, you know, dump that chick, you know? So don't go to the
There's enough
masses
of
with
that
that
on
stuff.
Reddit as it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Somebody asked the other day on the sub, should I break up with my boyfriend? I was like, why would you ask that to people who got dumped? They're going to tell you, like, yeah, he hurt, you know, like, wrong crowd. So, and again, like when you spam subs too, you're going to get a bunch of bad answers from all, you know, different subs too. I try to keep everything in along the lines of what Neville or God has said, you know? And I think
Exactly.
that's really important because too many teachers, too many cooks in the kitchen, it's never good. So stay off of Reddit, stay off of TikTok. You know, I mean, if you want to come to ours, great. But even I would be like, you'd be better off reading the books, reading the Bible too. Even this
Yes.
podcast. This podcast, I got to say it because everybody thinks like if they tell me I listen to your podcast, I do everything you say. That's not the point of this. This podcast is to complement the Bible, to complement Neville's books. It's not the go-to for all the answers. We're still learning the answers. We're still teaching it. It's going to evolve. But you do have those books and you're better off, you know, I would love for you to listen, but also make sure you've read those books first. Make sure you read your Bible daily. Let God comfort
Yes.
you constantly. That's what's going to
For
make the real
sure.
difference. Yeah. So I just want
Yeah.
to say that to you guys.
That's where
So,
Neville found his inspiration, and I know you guys can find it
yeah,
too if you're open to it.
we're not gurus. We're just guys who are really into this. It's worked out for us and we like to share it. And we love talking about God and all the wonderful things he can do for you. You know, we're trying to leave behind a legacy of love so that when we're gone, a bunch of people were inspired and they're living like that now too. And the world's a better place than when we got here, you know? So, but it's, you know, not the be all end all. Read the books, read the Bible over Neville's books. If the Bible is complicated and you say the wording is hard, there are great apps. You can literally Google a passage and say, translate it into modern English, and it will.
That's true.
And then it'll send you links to articles that break it down even further. There's no excuses, guys. You live in the age where everything is at your fingertips. If you want to know what book to start with, how would I know? I don't know your taste. You know, read whatever calls to you, but read them all. You got to read them all anyway. You know, what part of the Bible should I start with? Whatever part you want to. These are questions you ask when you don't really want to begin. You know, you're looking for another chance to stall.
Yeah,
So
my
just
suggestion is
start.
definitely just start anywhere, and if you find that part boring, just move on to the next part till you find that
There
interesting
was
part.
Paulo Coelho wrote this great book called The Warrior of the Light, which was just like sayings. And anytime I had questions, I would just be like, all right, let me grab the book and flip through it. I'd be like, what do I do about this? And I would flip through and stop on a page. And 9 times out of 10, it was like, the warrior does this, that. I was like, holy shit, that just answered my question. Do that with the Bible. Be like, God, show me a story, a verse, whatever you want me to know. Tell me what I need to learn here. Flip through the Bible and just stop and then read that whole page. I guarantee it'll be what you need to hear. Go to church. Every time I have a question, I go to church. The homily, without fail, is always, even when my wife and I were going through shit, I would go and be like, are you listening to this? He's telling us don't get divorced. He's literally talking about divorce today. God is telling you, don't divorce me. And she's like, why don't you just shut up and let me listen to it then instead of pointing out the obvious, you know? And I was like, well, he's trying to tell you something. And then the next commercial was like, not all marriages work. Sometimes you have to get out. And my wife was like, see? And I was like, oh, fuck you, TV. I was like, that's not God. That's the devil. Church was the priest, you know? So, yeah. But, all right, guys, we've said enough. We love you. Anders, thank you again so much, my man, for everything you do.
Absolutely.
Guys, please thank Anders in the comment. He figured out how to record everything now that we lost Skype. He always comes through for us. So thank you so much, man. I love you, buddy.
Hey, love you too, and love you guys in the audience, and look forward to your comments, and love to hear some more success stories. It's always
please engage with us. You know, not in an argument, and you know, you don't have to thank us for anything. But if you have any questions or you just want to talk about some stuff, we'd love to
share what you've seen, which has been helpful, and encourage others.
Yeah, check out the sub. I have a lot of posts about how I did what I did, all the steps I took, why you can't use my affirmations and you got to create your own. Like all the answers are there. Plus, again, the books, the books, the Bible, the Bible, the Bible.
All right.
All right.
I'll talk to you guys soon, and hopefully sooner than a few months. All right.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.